It's called Why Is Everyone Obsessed with Monster Hunter? This is from Monster Hunter Swooker. And I talked to this content creator just to make sure I pronounce his name correctly in his video or his on his channel. And he said I did, and I still feel like I'm saying it wrong. But if he said that I said it right, that means I said it right. All right, let's kill the music, and then we are gonna check out the video.
Monster Hunter is a series of cycles. You choose a monster, hunt the monster, make stuff out of its drops, and repeat until the sun burns out. In its simplest, most fundamental form, that's the entire game. It doesn't sound very fun.
It is.
So why is it? Well, upon closer inspection, the answer becomes pretty obvious. It starts with that progression that I mentioned at the beginning. Practically every game ever made has some sort of progression.
Oh, maybe he did say some stuff that we missed.
End by fighting strong ones. That's not something unique to Monster Hunter, nor would it be something worth highlighting were it not for how it's done in Monster Hunter. In these games, each and every monster has a distinct personality and character. This makes the progression in the monsters that you face feel extremely significant, as they all bring something unique and exciting to the table.
Yeah. And I will give a big shout out to Monster Hunter and the Capcom team for creating these really cool, unique monsters. And they continue to do it over and over and over and over. In every single game, they're cooking with all of their new monsters, all the new armor, all the new weapons, all the new skills. It's just a very fun game. They're doing such a good job with it.
Is a dancing crane that shoots fireballs. It's also based on the Kasa Obake yokai from Japanese mythology. The Kasa Obake is an umbrella monster, and that nature is perfectly reflected in Aknasam.
And then on top of that, the lore is also fire too.
Because most umbrellas shoot fireballs, as they often don't, but because of how the monster both moves and behaves. This combination of a crane and an umbrella creates an incredibly graceful monster that almost dances through the sky as it fights. What's so brilliant here is that this design perfectly translates to the actual mechanics of the fight. This big umbrella-like crest on its head can be used to fan gusts of wind at the hunter. It's almost hard to predict where it'll land and how it'll move explicitly because of that floaty nature. Mimicking its mysterious movements are these multifaceted fireballs that it feverishly flings across the field.
Looks like Super Mario.
From the floor to the walls to even the subscribe button. The entire fight feels like you're squaring off against a sentient umbrella that effortlessly drifts around as if the wind itself is propelling its every movement. Don't forget though, Aknasam is supposed to be a dancing crane, and it absolutely fits the bill there as well. It strikes these poses after some of its attacks, flips through the air, and can even be seen balancing on one leg when it roars. Another monster, the fan favorite Zinogre, is a giant lightning wolf with multiple...
Two things before we continue the video. Big shout out again to Monster Hunter Swooker for one, creating an amazing video, because that's just kind of what he does. Two, he's using Monster Hunter Rise footage, okay, which is a massive W. There's so much hate in the Monster Hunter community on Monster Hunter Rise, and I think it is very, very forced, personally. And then three, the Monster Hunter team, another thing that they cooked with are these trailers that were in Monster Hunter Rise. When you approach a new monster or whatever, it gave you this really badass like movie, like cinematic entrance to fighting the monster, and they did such a great job on that.
Different phases. He's got a normal state, his charged state, and his supercharged state. The charged states are achieved with the help of these little guys in the air. They're called Fulgur bugs. That may seem insignificant, but keep it in mind. It'll be extremely important later. This whole fight revolves around that charging mechanic. When Zinogre charges, he leaves himself wide open. If you hit him enough while he does this, you can interrupt his charge. If he fully charges up...
Sorry, I don't mean to keep pausing. But if you look up here, his Palico's name is Little Swooker, or Lil Swooker. W.
Gets more aggressive, hits harder, and gains perfect control over his lightning element. However, when charged
that is fun.
Like this, the monster lowers its defenses a bit. Parts of the monster that were tougher before now soften with the new lightning cloak, allowing you to deal more damage. The supercharged state is even more aggressive and dangerous. The eyes of the monster begin to glow a bright blue, the monster's combos are longer and more deadly, and while sure, his defense is still a bit lower, taking advantage
he's still a
of that
powerhouse.
Harder than ever.
Yep.
Crucially though, if you hit him enough in either charged state, you'll knock him out and bring him back to his base form. This creates an extremely fun back and forth, where the only way to calm down this living lightning bolt is to match its overwhelming aggression with your own. I could keep going and list a dozen.
Same thing with Rajang or Rajang.
Detail is that this isn't something exclusive to Zinogre or Aknasam or some group of special monsters. This level of care and depth exists in nearly every monster in the entire game. If you changed up a few minor things here and there, added a cutscene or two, and threw in a dramatic backstory, Zinogre would make an excellent final boss of a lot of video games.
Very true.
Here, it is a skippable intermediate immediate side boss. The roster of these
It's
games
true.
is so unfathomably high quality that Capcom doesn't even care if you skip a boss like Zenogre, because they know that around the corner, they've somehow cooked up something even better.
Yep.
This is the first of 3 reasons why progression in Monster Hunter is so outstanding. Finding out what waits for you around that corner, what kind of enemy you'll face, and how its personality
It's always
shines
fun.
through in its encounters creates a feeling that's truly second to none. The second step in this cycle is what happens after the hunts. After defeating these one-of-a-kind monsters,
Oh my
you get
God.
the chance to make some weapons.
Honestly, this is my favorite part of the game. Like, crafting the weapons, crafting the armor, and then creating this like amazing build that you've like taken the time, and a lot of time. You take a lot of time out of your day to get very creative to make these builds. I like to line things up, make sure my affinity is right or high enough, make sure my hit damage is nice, and then I throw in whatever the skills that I need to make my damage even better. It's by far my favorite part of the game is crafting.
And armor, and unbelievably,
And then also like looking at how well they make these weapons and how well they make the armor pieces, right? Because they're showing here Gasmagorm, and this is a greatsword, looks like, maybe. And it looks like it came off of the monster, like it looks like Gasmagorm's arm, right? So they do a very good job, like reflecting the monster in their weapons and armor. And it's so cool to just see it, especially for the first time.
the level of detail in those weapons and armor actually matches the level of detail in the monsters themselves. Let me show you an example from Zenogre. There are 14 different weapon types in Monster Hunter, and this one is called the Longsword. Much like Zenogre, this weapon has the ability to charge up and get stronger. This right here is an uncharged longsword, and this is a charged longsword. Notice the white glow? Now this is Zenogre's longsword. Fittingly, it's lightning element just like Zenogre himself, and it even matches his colors, but that's not why it's special. You see, when you charge up Zenogre's longsword, instead of just gaining that white aura like normal, the hilt pops out, the weapon begins to glow, and small bolts of lightning dance across
which is awesome.
the blade. As the finishing touch, remember those Fulgur bugs from earlier? Well, take a look. You likely won't notice this in the heat of battle, but there they are, just floating around. They even slowly disappear when the
I never even knew that. That's amazing.
sword is sheathed. That is what makes the gear designs in Monster Hunter so special. You're not carrying around a weapon that you got from beating a boss. It's almost as though you're channeling the very spirit of the monster with each swing. It's this level of detail that makes you feel like a kid on Christmas morning every time you defeat a monster and sprint to the smithy to see what kind of gear you can make
Big
out of
facts.
its drops and how that gear will represent the monster's personality. In fact, let's play a quick game. Lock in and focus up. So all of these different weapons are from one single monster. See if you can imagine some of the monster's qualities. What does it look like? How big is it? How fast is it? What kind of element might it use?
Okay, as a person who's played, this is Astalos, and yeah, all these weapons are absolutely amazing.
Like that. I'll give you a second. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. Okay, let's think about this. So just at a glance, we can tell the monster is probably some mixture of green and black based on the colors of the weapons.
And it's spiky, as you can tell, everything's kind of spiked up.
If we try to guess the general speed, we could assume it's rather fast, judging by the fact that the sword is this slender rapier and even the hammer is sharp. Next, we can reach a little and assume that the monster might be using lightning, considering the lightning bolt patterns on both the hammer and the longsword. Now, if you're really perceptive and look closely at this greatsword, you'll notice that it actually changes shape when it charges up. There are these green bits that fan out when the blade opens.
What?
Too, and the hunting horn, the lance, and the dual blade.
That's cool.
They all have this weird green pattern.
I know, like, I've seen a lot of this stuff happen, right? But it's cool to see it from different weapons, because I don't really use the greatsword that much. But that was cool.
It's almost like a bug's wings. If we consider a few assumptions from earlier, we can surmise that this may be a fast and slender bug. And if these are wings, then it can likely fly too. So if we put it all together, we've got a black and green lightning monster that moves fast and might even look like a flying bug.
Sonic.
And wouldn't you know it, that's actually pretty close. Astalos has translucent wings with that membrane pattern that bugs have, a spiky black shell that almost looks like an exoskeleton, and even its body proportions are similar.
Amazing monster too, by the way.
70% tail. It's just so fascinating to me how many of this monster's qualities are distilled in its weapons, and it's the main reason why gear progression feels so satisfying in Monster Hunter. Oh, and all of this applies to the armor as well, but I'd basically be repeating the exact same things, so I kind of brushed over
that Malzeno drip.
There is one last part of progression in Monster Hunter, but it's going to be hard to understand without a bit of context, so we'll throw it in a folder and come back to it when we're ready. The second of the 3 pillars lies in customization. There are 14 different weapon types in Monster Hunter. All 14 of these are unlocked from the start, and you can think of them sort of like characters in a fighting game. Much like the monsters though, each weapon has an incredible level of depth.
Legend of Zelda Sword and Shield, beautiful.
My personal favorite, those two facts have nothing to do with each other, I'm not biased at all, the Switch Axe.
You know, Swooker, this is why you're my dog. This is why you're my dog. You know what I mean? The Switch Axe.
Switch Axe has 2 forms, Axe Mode and Sword Mode. Axe is safer, has a bit more range, and allows you to move a little faster than Sword Mode does. To balance this out, Sword Mode deals more damage and has access to more powerful attacks and finishers. But you see this meter up here? Every time you attack in Sword Mode, this meter will go down. Once it reaches the bottom, you're locked out of Sword Mode.
Oh my god, and when the meter's full, and then you pull out your sword, and, you know, depending on what weapon you have, it will have this beautiful glow, okay? I was using the, whose Switch Axe was it? I can't remember, but it was like a paralyzing Switch Axe. I've also used a Thunder Switch Axe, and then you have that sword gauge full. You pull out the sword, and then it has like this thunder aura. Dude, it's so fucking cool.
Charges a bit. There are a few different ways to charge this gauge that vary depending on the game, but in the most recent one, just attacking in Axe Mode will fill it back up. So the flow of the weapon ends up being use Sword Mode until the gauge gets low, switch back to Axe Mode until it refills, switch back to Sword Mode, and repeat. Here's where things get tricky. If you try to use Sword Mode when the gauge isn't past this point, you'll get stuck in a slow reload animation that leaves you wide open. Something similar happens if you run out of gauge.
That's exactly how you explain the Switch Axe. And the Charge Blade too, by the way.
Okay, let's sum all of that up in a neat graphic. In the simplest sense, Sword Mode is limited high damage, while Axe Mode is low damage. The thing is, while it may seem like I deliberately chose the most complicated weapon and went far too in-depth on niche details just to prove a point, that couldn't be further from the truth. You do genuinely need to know all of this stuff to play a weapon like Monster Hunter. Again, it's just like a fighting game. Crucially, this level of depth isn't exclusive to the Switch Axe. Every single weapon in the entire game has a similar level of intricacy. Something that may already be obvious though is the profoundly flexible playstyles that you can use. Sure, you can switch between Axe and Sword Mode like it's a flowchart.
God, I missed the wire bug.
Right way to play this weapon or any other. So not only do you have these 14 complex weapons, but even once you've found the right one for you, you might end up playing it in a totally different way from someone else. This fact is only further amplified by the skill system. In Monster Hunter, there are dozens of different skills to choose from. Some are as simple as an attack boost or an increased crit rate, but others grant more unorthodox abilities from allowing you to eat poisonous mushrooms to giving you the Black Plague. Maybe you'd like to be the support for your...
I will say, Jaycan has a amazing Mushroom-mancer build, by the way.
So you use skills like Wide Range, an ability that will cause your items like potions to affect nearby allies. Maybe you like to be a pure tank, so you use the Diversion skill to make monsters target you often. Or maybe you have no sense of self-preservation and use a skill that...
Boy, do I miss that counter right there.
Actively drains your health just for more damage. What's especially cool about these skills is that the armor you get from the monsters have skills that represent those monsters. It's just like the weapon designs. Take Nergigante for example. For a bit of context,
love Nerg
is the top of the food chain in Monster Hunter, and this guy hunts Elder Dragons. He's an extremely aggressive and violent monster. He's basically the living embodiment of Black Air Force energy. So naturally then, his armor set gives you abilities like Agitator, a skill that makes you stronger when the monster you're fighting gets enraged,
and maximum might.
A surge which speeds up your stamina recovery so you never have to slow down. When you wear a monster's armor, you're playing the game how they did. You can probably start to see how these options begin to get exponential pretty fast. Not only do you have the choice of what weapon you want to use and how you want to play it, but now you've got skills as well that further push you into your ideal playstyle.
And just building all of that together is so fun. Shout out to Luna Garen right there.
Of course, there is still the single most important part of customization in Monster Hunter: drip. I mean,
that's all that matters, baby.
Do stats really matter if you're walking around looking like this? Anyway, this is where we can loop back to progression. Not only does your gear allow for new skills as you progress, you gain new skills as well. Not the character in game, but the human behind the screen holding the controller. Now that we have a little context on how complex the weapons in this game are, we can finally return to progression and open up that folder from earlier.
Right.
Perhaps the most satisfying part of progression in Monster Hunter is
Building.
the progression of your personal skills
Yes.
as you play more of the game.
True.
When you start playing Monster Hunter with any weapon, you're not going to be very good at it. There are so
You will
many
not.
quirks and intricate details with every weapon that you just have to play the game yourself to fully get a hold of all of it. There's a ton of recovery after attacks in this game, especially with bigger signature moves. The combat in Monster Hunter is far more deliberate and committal than the combat of most 3D action games. It's
True.
totally normal to spend over a second just charging an attack or standing still in a recovery animation. Because of this, you'll often find yourself using an attack, even landing it, and still getting hit regardless. This
Very
is why
true.
it's so important to study and truly understand your weapon. What are its strengths and
And you have to study the monster. Okay, you also have to pay attention to the monster, what the monster's doing, because even if you know everything that your weapon does, if you weren't paying attention to the monster, you're going to be trying to get off this big crazy ass attack. But if you don't know what the monster's doing, you're going to whiff that attack, or you're going to take extra damage because you just, you missed, and then they blow your ass up.
weaknesses, the timing on its attacks, in what matchups does it struggle and where does it excel. This isn't something you can figure out in 15 minutes of practice.
Facts.
It's something you'll slowly and gradually gain over dozens of hours of real combat. There is, however, one critical detail that I've left out, and without it, this combat wouldn't work at all. The monsters play by the same rules that you do. They too will often spend well over a full second charging their attacks or in recovery animations. It's in this way that you experience a level of progression on
That's how
each
you learn.
specific monster as well. You'll learn their timing, their strengths and weaknesses, when you can go all out and when you've got to practice caution. With each hunt, you'll gain more and more proficiency, not just over the weapon you use, but the monsters it helps you defeat.
Beautiful.
This is where the third and final pillar comes in, but it's also where the cycle resets. There was this indescribable yet profound feeling I got 500 hours into my first Monster Hunter game. Back then, I was using dual blades, an extremely fast and combo-heavy choice that
Dual
boosted
blades
the
are
best
fun.
evasion of any weapon at the time. However, at hour 500, when I had fully and thoroughly mastered the dual blades, I got bored. I would often look away at other things while using the weapon, since I had such a perfect understanding of my openings and combos that I didn't even need to look at the screen.
It
when I
makes
was playing
sense.
some of them.
Yep.
This was cool at first, but I yearned for that feeling of progression from 500 hours prior. That feeling of going from a lost and confused rookie who barely understood how to attack to an unstoppable force of nature. Then, on a whim, I figured, why not try out another weapon?
The best weapon in the game, mind you.
Maybe this weird-looking sword axe thing, and that's when it happened. Unbelievably, it was nearly that exact same feeling I had when I opened the game for the very first time.
Honestly, I have a similar story. My first love for a weapon was the sword and shield. Okay, I first started playing the game of Monster Hunter 3 on the Wii U bars, and I had a lot of fun with it. I liked the ability to slash. I liked the ability to also stun. I liked that it was fast. The weapon was kind of easy to understand, but just like Swooker's saying, I got bored as hell. And then I saw the switch axe. I tried it out. I love the complexity of it. I love the damage of it. It's just the perfect weapon, okay? And I absolutely fell in love.
I was fumbling around dropping combos, figuring out how to execute all of my attacks, and staring with bright eyes at these incredible new special moves with overwhelming anticipation and wonder.
The big power is what got me.
I now had to look at the monsters through a totally new lens as well.
Yep.
My attacks weren't as fast, my openings were different, even the parts of the monsters I was targeting had to change, and so too did my strategy for fighting them. The entire cycle had begun anew. And that's the key to mastery in Monster Hunter. Not only do you master your weapon and the monster that you're fighting, but whenever you want, for whatever reason, you have the chance to do it all again.
Again and again and again and again. That is why it's such a beautiful game. The longevity, the customization, whether it's the drip, whether it's your build, whether it's your weapon, whatever it is. It keeps us all playing the damn game, and they do such a good job keeping all of us here. Another W video, so let me go back to that video.
Reasons people like
okay, make sure you guys follow Monster Hunter Swooker. Big thumbs up on that video. Another banger. We appreciate you, man. I will have this video in the description below, so make sure you go follow his channel.